I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Just connecting with your breath. Just really allowing yourself to settle into your body, into the space you're in. I also invite the listeners to take a moment and close the eyes and just ground to the space where you are. Except when you're driving, of course. I recommend not closing the eyes, but if not, just really close the eyes for a moment and let the spirit of this Palo Santo that I just lit also move into your field, into your space, and really allow that to clear away anything that you don't need in this very moment. But also really inviting all of the healing or anything that you want to receive right now. All the inspiration that you might want to receive, to really welcome that in. So I invite you to really bring your breath deep down into your womb, to really allow yourself to ground into the space. Ground into your body. Inviting all of you to be here. This is the space for you, Diana, to just be yourself fully and wholly and share your story and share your medicine with all the listeners. It's a space for your voice to be heard and for your story and medicine to inspire the women and the listeners. Just taking a few more deep breaths. Maybe even if you feel like you need to move your neck or your hips, just anything that will bring you into your body, into the space even more. Yeah, and then you can gently open your eyes again and welcome, welcome. Welcome everyone to a new episode of Real and Raw, Your Story is Your Medicine. And today I'm so honored and so excited. I have a really beautiful, inspiring woman in my podcast, Diana Beaulieu. And Diana, she is a modern medicine woman, womb awakening teacher, coach, author, speaker, and storyteller. She has studies in biology, human sciences, and psychoneuroimmunology. She worked as an anthropologist and writer and researcher. Diana also worked in frontline addiction, homelessness, and women's services, and began to understand how early and ongoing trauma creates long-term impact on human emotions and behavior. Through her own personal healing journey, and the self-healing methods that she developed for herself and her clients, Diana's unique pathway of womb healing and awakening was born. And Sacred Womb Awakening is a new healing modality designed to help women overcome past sexual and emotional trauma and to move from wounded to whole woman. And so good to have you here, Diana. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Leticia. It's wonderful to be on your podcast.
Yeah, it's such an honor because Diana, she is actually my teacher, the teacher of Sacred Womb Awakening. And that's why it's even more an honor to have you here and to really receive all of your wisdom, all the wisdom, I mean, all the wisdom, but like parts of the wisdom, like getting insights of the wisdom and the medicine that you share that I was able to receive throughout the practitioner training. So, yeah, to begin with, why don't you share us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do in more depth, and maybe also like some major rites of passages?
Wow, big question. I will see if I can give you a nice, succinct answer to all of that. Yeah, thank you for the beautiful introduction. So really what I consider myself to be is a woman who's walking the earth and doing my best to make sense of life and how we embody ourselves here in these bodies these beautiful women's bodies that we have, and wanting to contribute to our understanding of how women can really be in their own really, really natural and aligned power, which I believe is something that we know instinctively, and we understand it because it's there somewhere in our wisdom and in our collective memory, but it's something that we may well have lost in this life or even in others, or through ancestral and collective traumatization. So I guess my quest has always been to find what is that natural embodiment of woman. And as I guess, because that was my soul purpose or my soul's desire, of course, I needed to come in with some initiation, some need for initiation, in order to trigger me to really learn about these things. And so I guess the first initiation was being born to a mother who had mental health issues, and then realizing later on how much I also embodied those issues and had to heal them. And so there was body dysmorphia. In her case, there was eating disorders. There was also personality disorders. And so a lot of my life was really about having a wounded mum and kind of just having a firsthand experience of what it is to be in the presence really of this kind of very distorted feminine energy, as I call it, that's come from heavy traumatization, as happened in her case, and to then really kind of embody some of the difficulties in myself so I could really, really live them. And another early childhood initiation for me was sexual abuse as well. So there I was really experiencing some very distorted masculine energy and knowing what it's like to be in the feminine as a victim of the distorted masculine, sexually and emotionally. So I would say those were the two kind of early life initiations that were coming into my feminine energy and from the masculine energy, and kind of gave me, as you might imagine, a relatively challenging start. I had a lot to deal with. And then really a lot of the future initiations after that were about healing those things or coming to a realization of those things. And one of the most important initiations for me, which was an empowerment initiation, was coming into connection with my shamanic side. So in my late 20s, I discovered the art of shamanic journeying, which is something that allows you to complete your perception of what is happening in your life, in the sense that if we're just in everyday reality and if we're in our normal level of perception, we're just feeling what we're consciously aware of. We're feeling the emotions that we're consciously able to allow ourselves to feel. We're remembering what our consciousness wants us to remember. But shamanic journeying takes us on a journey into all the things that have been hidden from us and starts to bring them to light, not instantly, of course, but over time. Right. And applying this method of using drumming to journey. And that was such a huge initiation because it was the first time I really had a tool to peer through into the depths of what I was experiencing, what my mother was experiencing, what was happening in my masculine lineage as well, and start to heal those things. So that was really a beautiful and empowering initiation where I felt like I'd come home and I could finally make sense of my life through this tool. And I felt like it was something natural to my soul, as if something I'd done a lot in my lifetimes, and it was easy to just bring it back again.
Right.
A natural gift. And then another really major initiation was then having a child, giving birth to my daughter. And that really began to trigger my connection with my womb. And a few years after my daughter was born, I went into a very kind of dark night of the womb, dark night of the soul, dark night of the womb, where I really began to face and clear memories of my childhood sexual abuse. And it also threw up and brought up to light many of the other things that I was holding within myself. And it was really the first time I started to realize that my power, my safety, my groundedness, my sexuality, my sense of my boundaries as a woman, all of this was encapsulated within the womb. And because of not having healed my womb previously, I never had felt safe. I'd had poor boundaries. I had not been grounded. I had not been able to forge relationships. And through going through a kind of amazing alchemical process in the womb, I managed to kind of transform all of these weaknesses into knowledge and self-understanding, and then eventually strength. So for me, the work that I teach is really directly the result of the initiation I had myself and experienced. And that's very beautiful, because the kind of knowledge that was coming to me was coming shamanically or intuitively, directly. So it was direct knowledge, or gnosis, for me personally. And it meant that it was very empowering for me. I wasn't sort of waiting for someone to tell me the answers. They were coming to me. Yeah. Yeah, and the most recent initiation is coming into connection with my soulmate, with my with my spirit mate, whatever we might call him, after a lifetime of mainly not being in relationships, and then really coming into connection with a man who's done his work also, who's really done a lot of his work on his sacred masculinity, and that we were able to come together in a really beautiful way. So that's a more recent initiation. You could say that I'm still in the very early stages of that one.
Wow. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it is so powerful, especially what you said. It's that, like, you know, you needed to kind of like have that initiation to actually then develop, or like to remember, to reactivate and awaken all these gifts that were actually just there waiting for you to be awakened. And it's just so beautiful to see this journey, and especially also now that just the latest I mean, with being in this relationship, especially because I remember it was like during our training also, like we could see also that development, and it was so beautiful to see, like, you know, like all the how it's really just happening, right? It's like when you do the work, like really starting to shift, like things in your life start to move as well, and it's just so amazing to see. And that's why it's like this real that's why for me, like, you're so inspiring and such a beautiful example and a wise woman, because you are actually really embodying, you're walking the talk, you're like really doing all this work, and it's so amazing to see. And yeah, so I mean, myself, I was able to like really heal so much throughout that training. And yeah, maybe you could even speak more about because you know, more about the fact of like how it you know came to you, like how you started to like heal, and how things started to come up in your memory, right? Because I just remember for myself as well, like when I was beginning that the training, like I knew I had to do it. It was like my whole body was like telling me, leading me, guiding me to that work, but I wasn't really sure like how much there was actually there. And like until I actually started doing that work, well, it was like kind of like opening the box of Pandora, and like everything started to come out and like really starting to heal little by little. So maybe you can also share a little bit more about yourself, or like, or how you even like back then, before you even started with with the shamanic work, like how you kind of felt maybe something was going on that you were led to that work.
Yeah. So it's a good question, and I guess I'll start by saying that when I say one of my early childhood initiations was sexual abuse, I didn't actually really realize that
Right.
until I was about 40. And that was this major initiation from my womb that happened. And the initiation was actually remembering. And it felt like my womb had been storing these memories of things that had happened to me as a child. And it had been stored there because my consciousness couldn't deal with that information. You know, like many trauma experiences, we just pack them down somewhere into the body. And the mind cannot accept them as part of our biography of who we are and what's happened. So we just store them somewhere. And the initiation was the womb beginning to wake up and say, hey, there are things happening here which you haven't been aware of. And so there was this kind of around 7 or 8 year process while I was actually developing the modality of healing at the same time around the womb, where my womb was really bringing up a lot of trauma memories. And so I was going into very strange states where my whole body would shake and I'd have these floods of memories, which came also with a lot of emotions, a lot of stress, a lot of exhaustion. Also, it's no easy task to allow all of this to come through. It's difficult. It's a real purge. And at the same time, I was then finding ways that I could release these memories and transform the energy that I was finding there into something more harmonious. So, for example, realizing that my womb was full of these imprints of really, really toxic and very distorted masculine energy. And that this had been something that had created a lot of fear in me, also of being around powerful men. I'd really kept powerful men at bay in my life. Helped me to understand that the information that I had received as a young child was very extremely distorted. And I had the power to transform that and to clear that out of my system and to then bring in a kind of energetic embodiment of what it is for the divine masculine energy to be felt. So I was like, releasing out that really aggressive and unloving energy and inviting in really purely at an energetic level at the beginning, just what is the divine and harmonious, balanced and loving and safe yet powerful energy that I can also embody in myself. So really healing my masculine, which is really beautiful. And by healing that, I was then also able to get so much more grounded because I hadn't felt safe to be in my womb energy. And so I was always like either in my head as an academic, intellectual, or then even doing shamanic work as a spiritual person, kind of like up with the fairies because it was nice and safe in the spirit realms. I felt really powerful in the spirit realms. I did not feel powerful in the body. And so starting to inhabit my womb space gave me a sense of huge power and safety as well. And also allowed me to feel that I have boundaries. So if you're not in your body, how can you know where your physical and emotional boundaries are? And boundaries were an issue for me around just really understanding, well, who am I? What is my sense of self? Where do I end? Where do others begin? What is my energy? And valuing that presence of my own energy and my own being and my own body was very important. So this kind of grounding was really, really powerful. You kind of asked also about how was it before I'd kind of done any healing, how, what was the indication to me that maybe there was something amiss? And through my childhood, I had a lot of nightmares. I felt very alone. I felt very spaced out. I was often literally looking up at the clouds and imagining kingdoms up in the clouds. Didn't find it easy to make friends or have kind of close relationships. So because I was very smart, I could just kind of mask all of these problems by being very good at schoolwork.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone thought I was fine. But actually I was a really disconnected young child. Yeah. And it's only often by looking back that we realize where we've come from, or where we've been.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I do believe it's also like that, it's just that inner calling that is just like guiding us towards whatever we need to receive in this lifetime to receive the healing, right? And like the teachers appear, the modalities appear. So yeah. And also, like, what would you tell, like, to the listeners, especially also the women who are listening, who are new to this work, or like what is actually our womb space, like the importance of actually really being embodied and connected with our wombs and what it holds. And yeah, if you could tell us a little bit more about our sacred womb space.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'd like to start with maybe what society tells us the womb is, and in a way, well, society, I mean, the kind of modern worldview, let's say, of the woman's bodies and the womb is that obviously it's a beautiful organ that's there to hold a growing life within it and birth a growing life within it. And really, medically and socially, we only tend to give the womb any attention around pregnancy and childbirth. And that's really when the womb has some kind of importance. However, my understanding of the womb has grown so immeasurably beyond that, into something really far more multidimensional. And from what I understand, really, is that the womb is actually more like a power center, an energetic center. And interestingly, it can be extremely active and powerful whether or not you have a physical womb. So whether your womb is healthy and in place, or whether you have issues, medical issues around your womb, or whether you even don't have a womb anymore because you've had all or part of your womb removed, there is an energetic presence and a light within that space, like an energy center, which is actually always there. And to me, it's the energy center that is most definitively centered around our personal power as women. So it's around our sexual power, our creative power, and our very presence and embodiment of who we are in a body. And being connected to your womb really connects you into your deepest instincts and your deepest knowing of who you are. And the womb, I believe, is such a repository of our soul information and the wisdom of our lives. I think of the womb as an embodied Akashic record, you could call it, of every woman. And within her womb, she's carrying the seed and the secrets of her own soul. And so by being connected to that deep inner wisdom within the womb space, you get to experience a greater level of self-connection and power than you could just by connecting to your mind or even your heart. Also incredibly powerful centers within us, and they all have value and they all relate to each other, but the womb is the foundation for all of it, because the womb is the foundation of who you are, physically, spiritually, creatively, emotionally, sexually, in all other respects.
Right. Wow, it's so powerful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And the thing is that because it is like, it is such a powerful center, but like you said, like usually, and I feel like even in childbirth, like even during pregnancy, like we are aware of it, but I do believe that even there's still so much disconnection of like, the trust and all the amazingness that our body is and the womb is, right? And I feel like even there, it's still like so disconnected. But like you said, like there, at least we have some kind of acknowledgement of there is actually this organ, there is this womb that is like actually creating life. And but it is so much more than just that, like you just shared. And I just find that so amazing. And yeah, why do you think are we so disconnected from our wombs? Why is that we don't feel it that way?
Well, I guess in a way, there's partly a cultural aspect where we don't live in a culture where it's considered important. So we have this constant lifelong conditioning, which is putting our attention into other parts of us. So, for example, for women in the Western world, we often just put our attention into our mind because now we do have an education, which we're very lucky to have. And, we've had all these amazing developments within our cultures, which allow us to experience so much of our power in so many beautiful ways. It, unfortunately, in our society is often expressed through the mind. And it's a conditioning that just leads us to have a sort of 5 sense view of reality and to not have a deep embodied sense of reality. And that's in the context of a whole philosophical kind of unfolding that we've had in our world around dividing the mind from the body, segmenting life into little packets, separating consciousness from feeling, and not really having an organic and whole sense of ourselves, and not honoring the wisdom of our bodies in relation to, let's say, the information or cleverness of our minds. And I think that's changing. I think that is a societal shift that we're in. So, one of these things is that we just don't, that part of us isn't acknowledged. So imagine, on the other hand, if you were able to go through initiation ceremonies at 7 years old or 14 years old, where you were really encouraged to connect to this part of yourself and listen to this part of yourself and become aware of this part of yourself, and where you lived in a society where you felt so safe and valued in your body that you would be able to feel safe connecting to that part. So safety is one of the big factors I also like to talk about with regards to why we're not connected, because a lot of us carry trauma in our bodies, and there is collectively a lot of sexual trauma in the female body, and there's emotional trauma. And I believe that we disassociate from ourselves a lot because we don't feel safe to inhabit what we actually are in our bodies. And this is one of the key wounds that we need to collectively heal. And so that unfortunately cuts us off from the womb space, which is deep down in our body, deep in the depths of our physical and embodied consciousness. Yeah. And another aspect I believe can be shame as well. So we have huge cultural conditioning around being ashamed of our bodies, being ashamed also of the womb, the vagina, our sexuality, all of the very normal reproductive functions that we have, our menstruation. Things are also changing here, but it's still kind of, the womb is meant to be out of sight and out of mind in our world. Her wisdom and wildness and blood and mess and craziness and emotions aren't really meant to be hanging out visibly in our lives. And in a way, we can function so much better in a mechanized world when we're not listening to her wild and often unpredictable needs and rhythms. So I think those are some reasons why we disconnect. Yeah. And then we lack knowledge of how to connect as well. So that's what I love to teach. Then how do you connect?
That's why you're here, right?
Right.
To remember all of the wisdom and teach it and share it with the world. Yeah, that's so important. And what would you tell women who are completely disconnected, who are like very at the beginning, and like, what would be like some first steps to actually start to reconnect little by little with their wombs?
Yeah, I think first to sense whether this is time, and whether it's time for you to connect with your womb. And if you feel that it is, if you feel some sort of inner pull or a curiosity to connect with your womb, then really just a nice way to begin is very, very simply just cupping your hands over your lower belly. And so if you're really just cupping your hands over your lower belly so that the bottom of your hand is at the top of your pubic bone, you're creating a beautiful container that just holds your womb, and you can really just allow your breath to arrive over where your hands are. And just invite your breath down into your womb space. And imagine that your womb is like a beautiful bowl or a vessel. And consider that this vessel might be quite empty because there hasn't been much attention, there hasn't been much awareness coming into her. So you can imagine that with every breath that you're consciously making into the womb, she's starting to fill up, maybe with a beautiful liquid light or an energy. And you can just really ask to feel your womb as an energy now. So with every breath, there's more energy in your womb or more light. You might see a light or feel a kind of vibration. You might even feel a little bit of cramping, because sometimes when you first connect with your womb consciously, she cramps a little. And just keep breathing down and imagining your womb is filling up with this beautiful energy. And you can just say a loving hello to her. Just greet her. And just feel whatever state she might be in. And sometimes you might notice that the womb feels quite glowing and open and flowing. Sometimes she might be crampy or painful, or there might be emotions there. So whatever you're feeling, you can just really acknowledge that without trying to change it. And just keep breathing. And if you like, there's something you need to release, you can just breathe anything out that your womb wants to release. So you're in a nice cycle now of breathing in lots of light and lots of a kind of loving attention. And then also now just breathing out anything you think your womb no longer needs to hold. So she's getting a nice detox and a chance to clear herself. And just really allow your attention to come down into the womb. So often our point of attention is up in our head. You can feel your attention now kind of journeying down your body, way down your chest, through your heart, through your belly, sliding down into your womb. Just feel that you can put your awareness in your womb and feel this sense of being in the womb, in your body, closer to the earth, in the depths of who you are. It's very peaceful here. It's very grounded. Yeah, and then you can just release that breath and just stay in your body and see what's changed inside you.
Thank you, Diana, for this healing practice, this connection to the womb. That was so beautiful. Wow. Yeah, and I don't know about you, whoever is listening, like however you feel right now, pretty sure you can feel a shift. I can definitely feel a shift in my whole energy, body, and like I feel more grounded. So yeah. Oh, just brings me back to our school and just makes me miss our calls. Oh, wow, so beautiful. Thank you so much, Diana, for sharing this practice.
It's very
Mm.
simple.
Yeah, that's it. Like that's what I love the most about your practices. They're so simple, but they're just so powerful. And I don't know, maybe if you want to also share a bit more about those practices, like because I feel like a lot of times we believe that, nothing's actually happening, but there's so much going on. So like really talking about like the 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 healing that actually happens on an energetic level, right? If you want to talk a little bit more about the practices, like what is actually happening and how
Sure.
yeah. Mm.
So as I was developing my own kind of healing modality for myself primarily, and then somehow formalizing it into a system that I could teach to others, that was a big part of my process. I kind of realized that I was kind of taking the womb on a journey.
Mm.
And this journey began with really just physically reconnecting with the womb. So what we're doing there is we're actually releasing trauma out of the body so that we can start to reintegrate the womb back into the rest of our physical awareness. And a lot of that involves releasing kind of energetic and physical blocks in the body, all the way down through the body, especially through the diaphragm and the digestive system, where we often carry a lot of tension, inflammation, emotional stress, and really just arriving physically with the womb and sort of integrating that, yeah, we also have this, and there's a whole complete physical experience happening between the head and the womb that can be integrated, that can be harmonized. And then the second step in the process, where how I teach it, is once we've really physically connected with the womb, we've woken her up, we've brought that healing energy into her, we've kind of given her initiation, we've woken her up, we've said, hey, here's some light, here's some breath, here's some attention, here's some consciousness. Maybe the first time you've received this in lifetimes, this is your moment to just really spark back into life as an energy center. Then what we're doing is we're listening. So we are learning how we can feel what is happening within the womb space, because we can only be on a healing journey if we know what there is to heal. And so a lot of this first step of the journey is listening to the womb, meaning feeling into her physical signals, her emotional signals, and also intuitive signals and memories, for example, as I've described in my case, which might be coming through and from the womb and signaling to us what is it the womb needs to heal. And then there is a lot of then potentially energetic healing that we can do with the womb. So I think of the womb space as a kind of energetic matrix that stores the memories of everything that she's happened to her energetically, as well as physically and emotionally. And also holds those imbalances energetically as well that she may have within her. So when we do energy healing, meaning that we're bringing specific wavelengths of light into the womb, or specific frequencies of energy into the womb, then what we're starting to do is we're starting to actually shift the energetic foundations of the space itself, which then goes on to integrate and have knock-on effects on the emotionality that's happening in the womb, any anger, shame, guilt, fear that might be repressed within her, and goes on further to have a positive knock-on effect on any physical manifestations of what may be in the womb, which may include, menstrual difficulties, fertility problems, different womb diseases and disorders. As far as I'm concerned, everything that we might experience at a physical level is a signal of something that was already happening at an energetic level. And when we bring energetic healing in, we can actually start to experience change in also those emotional, physical levels.
Yeah.
And then there's so much within the healing chapter of the womb journey. There's then so many elements of what we can bring healing to. So for example, we can heal the imprints of unloving sexuality, which is a big wound for many women. And unloving sexuality can include traumatic sexual experiences, but can even just include when you have attracted in lovers and relationships which just weren't fully conscious, where there wasn't a full conscious honoring of you and your feminine, and you weren't receiving a full conscious and mature masculine energy into you, which is very common because of the state of our world. I've yet to meet a woman who says, "Oh no, that never happened to me." And but one day I will be like, "Great, things are changing," you know.
Yeah.
So we're kind of releasing those old resonances of trauma or unloving sexuality, so that we can then come to really feel our divine feminine energy in the womb and our divine masculine energy in the womb, and start to really inhabit what is our highest potential within the womb, which is for a sexual and creative alchemy between a really high level feminine energy and a really high level masculine energy. And that will often have direct repercussions in our relationships. So it will perhaps push old relationships out of our lives, or create a need for radical shifts in the energetics of our relationships. And it will eventually allow the creation of new kinds of relationships, which were based on a far more harmonic, ideal of how our energy flows together. And so you're asking, how do we know the healings happened? I usually say, look for the signs in your life. You may be very intuitive and feel that healings happened, but it's kind of not official, and is it, until until something's really shifted in your life. That's why we're doing healing work. We're not just doing it for fun. We're doing it because we wish for and need changes.
Right.
And then there's other forms within the healing, like there's ancestral healing. So healing trauma imprints down the mother line, really big and important aspect of the work, so that we don't repeat patterns in our relationships and in our feminine power that come from limited or traumatized patterns all the way down the mother line. There's so much more. There's also how we prepare the womb to really receive the next generation of children. That's something I'm developing a lot more at the moment. Like really noticing that the energetics of the new souls that are arriving, it's very different from let's say our generation. So how can we bring the womb into resonance with the new generation? That's a very important question. And in a way, for me, it's kind of like the end goal of womb awakening. It's the ultimate kind of purpose of the work, is that we're now creating matrices of light within the womb that are in fact supporting and bringing in the new generation of humans, which is such a big part of this shift that we're in. So literally midwifing energetically the new generation, and making it easier for them, so that their souls don't have to deal with all our unresolved density and wounding, because when you come into a womb that womb is informing so much into your growing body, into your genetics, into your DNA, and into your energetics and emotionality. And so if that space is clear, then you already got a really big head start as a human being. And that excites me a lot.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yes. I also, I got my, just like I receive so much resonance from that, because that's also like really one of the major points where I'm really like, that is like so important to me.
Yes.
Like it's so important also for my work. It's like really that exactly, like preparing our wombs already for the new souls that are coming. And it's so important, because it's like really planting the seeds now for like the future generations. It's like all that we have received, so we can, and then that's what so amazes me so much, that we can, in this very moment, we heal our own past, and therefore our past lineages. But not that, it's like we are creating this new way for our future generations. And I think that is like, that's all that matters, right? It's like what we create now is what will be seen in future generations. And so it starts within ourselves, within our wombs. And feeling that so much. So it's so amazing. Yeah, exactly. And then I feel like it really comes back to that, to really remember and like reconnect with our sacred womb spaces, to really remember and reclaim them, right? It's like
Yes.
we have been so disconnected for too long, and like to really reclaim all of that. Oh, wow, so beautiful. So excited. This really excites me. Yeah, amazing. And yeah, and I was gonna ask you also, like, but you just mentioned it about the ancestral healing. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, like how that actually affects then the our lineages.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. So first to explain, because we sit in our mother's womb for 9 months, and she sat in her mother's womb for 9 months, and so it goes on. The womb is this amazing vehicle of physical and emotional transmission, as well as energetic transmission through the generations. So if we think about ancestral work, we can think about DNA. So of course the DNA that we've inherited, but it's also important to think about the environment which we inherited, the actual living physical environment of the body that we came through. And what I came to realize is that because of this unbroken transmission down the mother line, specifically, this is, there's of course transmission from the father line as well, which is extremely important, but talking about the mother line, that this unbroken transmission through the mother line and through the womb and pregnancy, we're not only holding, the power and the beauty and the love of our feminine ancestors, which is primarily what we're holding, but we can also be holding all sorts of traumatic imprints, which the bodies of our mothers were transmitting into us. And so it's like we receive then a kind of emotional and energetic and physical hangover of multi-generational trauma into ourselves, which is then going into our unconscious, and also potentially into our wombs, and creating all sorts of unconscious patterns and stories that we may be wondering why we're living, or noticing that are extremely similar to our mothers and grandmothers' stories. So, for example, if our mothers and grandmothers had unsafe emotional relationships with men, that is being transmitted. If our mothers, grandmothers, or great-grandmothers or beyond were in very traumatic situations of war or famine, or, losing children, diseases, when we know that, well, just looking at the history of Europe for the last 2,000 years, it's hardly a party, let's say that. Just a long chain of very traumatic events. Then we're still holding on to resonances of that. And what we can do is we can bring healing light into the womb space and really make a clear intention to heal these imprints. But even bigger than that, we can also invite the ancestors in to a shamanic ceremony and offer them that same healing, so that they can put to peace and that they can transform at a soul level, at an energetic level in the lineage, any trauma that has kind of held the lineage hostage until that time. And that is very, very powerful work. And often when the ancestors come and they finally get acknowledged, and it's such a shame, because in a lot of traditional healing system, the ancestors are central to anyone's health and well-being. If you haven't dealt with your ancestors, you're screwed. Because the whole foundation of who you are has not been healed. When the ancestors do come in, it's often such a relief for them, because they've been waiting for us to do this, because none of the generations before were calling them in and inviting them to heal and honoring them and inviting them to feel their true strength and power. So we're literally healing the roots under our feet, so that we can blossom and flower more in this life. It's really, really powerful and beautiful work.
Wow. Yeah, it is. I just feel I get goosebumps as you speak about that, because it is so powerful. Yeah. And also, like, through the womb healing, we can also heal, obviously, like the ancestral lines and the next generations, but also our past life imprints, right? That can also be healed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we just come in with so much from other lifetimes, and I believe that at this point in time, we have an amazing opportunity
Yeah.
to heal all the lifetimes. It's if they, past, present, and future, are all merging and bleeding into each other.
Yeah.
And so if we're setting powerful healing intentions, that can literally travel into all these other lifetimes we've experienced, or probably more of an advanced physics explanation would be we're experiencing it concurrently with this one.
Right. Yeah.
Perhaps. I don't know. But what I do know is that those past lifetimes do feel very accessible in the now,
Yeah.
when we're open intuitively into the more quantum aspect of who we are. So
Yeah.
that's really beautiful too, because just like our ancestral lineages, we come in with big hangovers of
Right.
multiple repeated sustained traumas in our many lifetimes as well, especially the ones of us who are medicine women and who've, you know, particularly in Northern Europe and a little bit in North America, well, and Southern Europe, people who went through the Inquisitions, the witch hunts, you know, that's just the most recent wave of persecutions that have affected us. And so then we could also bring healing to that. So the trauma of being executed or tortured or imprisoned or outcast or losing our children because of who we are, because we're in our power. And that can then make us help us feel safer to step back into our power.
Yeah.
And the role that we really meant to have in life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful work, and also like that's why it's so difficult to actually step into that, to actually really embody that, and to remember our power, because we are so traumatized from all that has happened. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it does feel like a shift, and like you also shared a lot of times with us, it's because like right now we do have, it's like the time, we have the tools and we have the space and time to actually heal that. The generations before us, they didn't have that. And like also like the whole consciousness of the whole world is shifting. So there is already, that is also helping for really deep healing to occur and to really allow that to happen. Yeah, it's powerful. And actually, before we end, I mean, I mean, we could go on and on, but I really wanted to like ask one more thing before we then start to come to an end. It's, you actually already mentioned that before, already with your own trauma, and also now, like obviously from the ancestral kind of baggage that we carry, how that affects what we invite into our lives, right? Like the energetic imprints that we have maybe in our wombs that we invite into our lives, be it relationships or just, I mean, be it intimate or friendships, or yeah, or even situations that we invite into our lives.
So you're kind of asking how the womb plays a role in that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing. I feel like the womb is the most powerful magnet that we have in our bodies and in our energy fields. And it's just amazing how you can really look at the situations and the relationships that are in your life, and they're a kind of complete barometer or mirror image of something that's happening in the energetic field of your womb. So for example, if you're sustaining trauma in your womb and you don't feel safe about relationships, the chances are you're either avoiding relationships or you're actually in unsafe relationships.
Yeah.
You know, and if, for example, you don't have really clear boundaries around your personal energy through the womb, the chances are that you're attracting people who are maybe taking your energy away from you and leaving you exhausted. Or you're attracting people who invade your energy because you haven't set up a clear boundary and space around yourself. And so your life is a reflection of you, you know, and that takes a certain amount of self-responsibility to see it that way. It's not really anybody else's responsibility to change it except you, if there's something that you don't like about it. And the beautiful thing is, when you start doing this womb work, you're working with the center in your body that's most directly connected to these relationship patterns, and you can actually watch it shift over time. And then you can really start to see how different friendships and relationships change form, because you have now consciously made a shift and committed to a different kind of relating, whether it's a sexual relating, whether it's friendship relating, whether it's how you relate as a therapist to your clients. Are you giving away all your energy to them, or are you keeping your boundaries? You know, all of this stuff, and that stuff that we talked about a lot about in the training as well. When we do boundary work,
Yeah.
big part of the work. Still my ongoing part of the work, still my biggest challenge. And I definitely have not fully got there yet.
Yeah.
And then I think from that we can really then have the opportunity to create really harmonious relationships. And really from a place of love, but also boundaries.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the boundary topic, that was a big one. I was like, oh wow. Yeah, and I feel like especially to actually recognize and see like how where we are actually also responsible for that. You know, I think that's what's somehow like the most empowering thing about this work is also like, I mean, besides all the healing and the actually really grounding in the body, but like really recognizing like, or like regaining that self-responsibility. It's all about that. It's like our responsibility, what we do and like how and what we attract, and seeing where we are actually being maybe, you know, it's like instead of blaming the others, it's like, okay, where did I actually contribute and co-create all these dynamics? So yeah, the boundary part was huge. It's like, oh my God, no one to blame anymore. Right, yeah. Yeah, but that was super eye-opening for me. Yeah, and I mean, especially, and I don't know, maybe like others can also relate to that, especially when we talk about boundaries, like we, at least for me, like I have until like a few years ago, I didn't even know what that meant. And then I started to hear about boundaries. I was like, okay, it's a concept, but I still had no idea what it meant. And then like to actually like really like learn, and especially the way you teach it, it just made so much sense. And you know, to really see the energetics of these boundaries, what it entails, and what, yeah, it was really, really eye-opening and life-changing, to be honest. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Diana, for your time, and it was such an honor to have you here and to share all your wisdom and the medicine. And actually, I wanted to ask, like, where can the listeners, if they're interested in your work or to work with you or to learn more about you, where can they find you, and what is it that you're currently offering?
So I have my website, which is www.sacredwomanawakening.com. And there you can find my online course, which is a kind of do in your own time, all these practices that we've been talking about here. It's an opportunity for you to actually do that work in a kind of self-study way online, which is really beautiful. And then you can also come for practitioner training, which is what obviously we did together. And I run 3 levels of practitioner training where you can really learn to then hold space for other women to work with the womb in all of these different ways and more. So feel free to pop into my website and have a look at those things and see if they resonate with you.
Yeah, thank you. And I will definitely share the website also here in the description. And yeah, I can only recommend. I mean, for me, honestly, that was life-changing. Yeah, really deep shifts. And yeah, and what are maybe some final words of wisdom from you that you would like to share with the listeners?
Well, I guess really to love yourself at this time, to really find all the ways in which you can love yourself and find balance and harmony within yourself and be true to yourself. There's a lot of really crazy energetic shifts happening right now. It can be overwhelming. Our world's full of uncertainty. And if we can just come back to ourselves every day and find love and get grounded in that, maybe we can navigate the next years, which are probably going to be fairly tumultuous too, with a lot more peace and safety in our hearts and in our wombs and our bodies.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for those words. I feel them too. It's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear as well. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Letitia. It's been a
yeah,
real pleasure to be with
yeah,
you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening as well.
yeah. Thank you, Diana. It was such a pleasure, such an honor. And thank you everyone for listening. And we'll speak to you in another episode.